Hello, and welcome to the final news update for Baldur's Gate 3. My name is McAllik, and this is going to be a long one. So feel free to skip around using the timestamps as much as you want. This is everything you need to know before the game launches on August 3rd. Yes, in case you missed it, the release has been moved up to August 3rd for PC, while the PS5 is locked in on September 6th. Me and my friends suspect they did this just to prevent a big overlap with Starfield, as that is also coming out in August. On release, the new level cap is now level 12. I suspect this is to keep the power scaling balanced with the flow of the story and to prevent players from grinding to level 20 and just walking up to the big bad evil guy at the end and just mopping the floor with them. I suspect they might have plans for DLC down the line where a higher tier story will warrant us approaching level 20. Because remember, when you're at that level, you're quite literally a legendary hero in D&D scaling. And for a quick reference, Drizzt is like level 16 in his books, and Elminster as a Chosen of Mystra is like around level 25. But don't quote me on that though, because I know that stuff can kind of fluctuate depending on what canon you're looking at. We're also getting two new races at launch, the Dragonborn and Half-Orcs. Dragonborn will have numerous sub-races reflecting each color of dragon kind, determining their breath weapons as well as their damage and resistance bonuses. Half-Orcs will have a mechanic called Savage Attacks that will allow them to do some of the highest weapon damage in the game, dealing extra damage on crits using triple the dice, as well as a second mechanic called Relentless Endurance, allowing them to beat death once prolonged rest, picking themselves back up at 1 HP. And lastly, dwarves will now have a third sub-race. They're getting the Duergar. Now, since we're on the topic of races, here is everything we're officially getting on launch day. We have humans, Githyanki, half-orcs, dwarves with the sub-races of Hill, Mountain, and Duergar. We have elves with the sub-races of High and Wood. We have Drow with Seldarine and Lolth. We have Tieflings with Asmodeus and Mephistopheles and Zariel. We have Halflings with Lightfoot and Strongheart. Half-Elves with Wood, High, and Drow. Gnomes with the subraces of Rock, Deep, and Forest. And finally, we have Dragonborn, all the way from the world of Aeber, a world where dragons rule and Dragonborn suffer in servitude. They will have 10 subraces reflecting the colors of both the chromatic and metallic dragons. We have black, blue, copper, gold, green, red, brass, bronze, silver, and white. And if you personally do not know their origin story, I highly suggest looking into it because it's actually pretty interesting. Now for classes, this list is certainly a bit longer, so bear with me for a minute. We will have a total of 12 classes and 46 subclasses available to us at launch. And here's a list of all of them. We have Barbarians with Berserker, Wildheart, and Wild Magic. We have Druids with Land, Moon, and Spores. We have Fighters with Battlemaster, Eldritch Knight, and Champion. We have Rangers with Hunter, Beastmaster, and Gloomstalker. We have Rogues with Arcane Trickster, Assassin, and Thief. We have Sorcerers with Wild Magic, Draconic Bloodline, and Storm Sorcery. We have Bards with Colleges of Lore, Valor, and Swords. We have Warlocks with Fiend, Great Old Ones, and Archfey. We have Clerics with the domains of Life, Light, Trickery, Knowledge, Nature, Tempest, and War. And then we have Paladins with Oaths of the Ancients, Devotion. There's also Oathbreaker, and then the new one is Vengeance. And then Wizards will have magic schools to choose from for Abjuration, Evocation, Conjuration, Divination, Enchantment, Necromancy, Illusion, and Transmutation. And finally, the last official class to be added right at launch is going to be the Monk, with a subclass for Open Hand, Shadow, and 4 Elements. As a general sneak peek, Larian has announced they will have abilities like Step of the Wind, which will allow you to use key points to disengage or dash as a bonus action during your turn, as well as doubling your jump distance. They will also start with Unarmored Defense, which means that you're going to receive an armor class of 10 plus both of your dexterity and wisdom modifiers at level 1. That's actually pretty good. And it seems like Larian is pretty proud of the work that went into the animations and VFX for the monks, so I'm gonna assume they'll be especially flashy with all of their kung fu moves during combat. And as a quick teaser for subclasses that they told us, it looks like Open Hand will be close combat focused with emphasis on psychic, necrotic, and radiant damage at mid levels, and then key explosions at higher levels. While shadow monks are quite literally just stealth ninjas that can teleport between shadows and weave strikes into them. And lastly, the 4 elements users will be the casting class for monks, using a variety of spells that are followed up with a rapid bonus action punches. And of course, as is standard with the monk class in D&D, through martials, their attacks will have level scaling, bonuses to unarmed attacks, and the choice to pick between dexterity and strength modifiers for attack and damage rolls. And nicely enough, they will also be able to deflect missiles back to their source as an interruptible action. And lastly, for the monk, it seems like Larian also has plans for us to find unique magic items out in the world to aid our monk friends with what they do best. They didn't specify what, but they said they're out there. Now, as far as spells go, spells and feats, a ton of brand new ones are being added at launch, and although I can't possibly cover them all in this video, I will impart the knowledge that we will have a total of 37 possible feats to choose from, and over 600 spells and sub-spells across all of our classes. Now, I may or may not cover all these in a different video, but most of these are self-explanatory, and you are free to pause the video and read them all here, or head on over to the Steam Community Hub for this exact same infographic. Companions. As you all know, we've had the same set of origin characters since the beginning of early access, but it's been confirmed that the tiefling Karlach will become the 6th origin character for us. She's got a major new glow up with her character model, and it looks like her backstory has gotten a bit of a tease with some kind of unholy machine pumping hellish fire through her veins. Whatever this implanted artifact from Zariel is, it looks to be a source of great fighting strength for her. But if she gets too worked up, it looks like she'll end up just going after anything or anyone within reach, including us. But in the end though, her character arc is going to be primarily about seeking justice for the oppressed, general camaraderie with all of the companions, and then getting revenge on the person who sold her into hell. Meanwhile, the 7th and final origin character is a being known as the Dark Urge, which I'll get to in here in just a minute. Something big that many of us have actually been taking issue with since day one was the fact that our companions would be locked in after finishing Act 1. Well, that idea got axed pretty hard because now I can officially say that all of our companions can join us throughout the whole game. For those of us who enjoyed the companion systems in games like Dragon Age or Mass Effect, this is actually pretty exciting because these companions alone add so much content to the game, and having them locked out after Act 1 would have just been a damn shame. And it looks like characters like Halsin and Minthara will now be joining the likes of Jaheira and Minsk as usable companions as well, whereas before they kind of just hung around and didn't do much. And yes, as far as romance goes, nearly everyone will be romanceable. And as of recent events, Halsin seems to be romanceable now. I was quite shocked when we saw his scene with Ostarian during the live stream, and a part of me wishes I recorded my own reaction, but at the same time, I'm a bit nervous to risk putting that on YouTube, so if you want to go check that out, it's on Larian's live stream, and it's pretty heated. All right, now for the Dark Urge. Although this final origin character is defaulted to look like a very predatorial dragonborn, this origin character is actually completely customizable. So if you choose to play this character yourself, you can change them to look like anyone you want. Race, class, gender, and even its name, they're all changeable. This character is designed to take you down a very dark path, and as you progress through the game, you start off with no memories after the tadpole insertion, and going from there, the tadpole has an unsatiable urge to make itself known through your deepest thoughts and dialogue options. It seems this character will have its own built-in companion as well, someone known as the Celeritas Fel. I probably butchered that name, please forgive me if I did. He is both vile and loyal. All he wants to do is to see you walk the path of blood, and he constantly urges you to commit some of the most vivid acts of violence in the whole game. We even got a glimpse of it during the live stream where we could actually chop off Gale's hand when he's trying to come out of the portal when we first meet him. But of course, it's confirmed that you're not required to be evil with this character. You can still play the way you want, just like any other Origin character. You can even pursue romance with other companions as the Dark Urge. But it looks like due to your issues, finding a proper relationship is supposed to be rough. And it looks like in the community update, the hints given to us is someone who can temper and restrain our most primal and untamed desires, but hopefully someone with more than a passing interest in bondage. With that in mind, I'm going to guess companions like Astarion and Lae'zel are going to be the dead end choices. They may seem like the easy path at the beginning and they may seem fun, but I feel like in terms of what you would need in a relationship, you're not going to get much from them for the Dark Urge. Whereas companions like Shadowheart and Karlach, I see them as hard-won supportive paths. It may be tough to gain trust with the issues at the beginning, but I feel like if you press on correctly, they will become the most supportive partners for you and your issues. But you know what though? I actually think Minthara is going to be the wild card in this instance, because if you do manage to romance her in early access, although you have to do some horrible things to get to that point, you kind of get a glimpse of her true self outside of the stuff with the Absolute. But that's just conjecture for a different day. Now this section is rather interesting because as it turns out, we are getting some kind of difficulty mode implemented at launch. And if I recall correctly, this is something we either thought wasn't happening or it was just never addressed. But based on what's been laid out recently, we will be getting a story mode that is super forgiving so that we can more easily enjoy our time in the game. Friendly NPCs will be harder to kill, trade prices are at a 20% discount, and you'll start the game with an extra +2 to proficiency bonuses. The second mode, of course, is just normal, which, as we've been told, is what we've been dealing with during the course of early access. And lastly, we'll also get a hard mode, where everything is designed to be brutal. All enemy AIs are stronger, they'll start prioritizing companions with the lowest armor class scores, and will also go for the kill the moment someone goes down. And more than that, it looks like certain fights throughout the game, the enemies will be getting extra reinforcements, extra spells, and even extra consumables. During the live stream, the developer who had been handling that had mentioned, like, yes, certain fights, like, I don't know, someone with a bow and arrow may randomly pull out a fire arrow and just up their damage randomly using stuff like that. But they also mentioned that an owlbear could throw a grenade at us. I probably heard that wrong, but either way, I am expecting hardcore mode to be, as they said, absolutely brutal. I don't think you should go into that with a faint heart. I think you need to go into that mode either expecting really, really short fights or really, really, really long fights, because that's the DM wants to kill you, and that's the name of the game with that hard mode. So any of you who want to touch that, good luck, because I'm gonna wait for y'all to touch it so I can see exactly how horrible it is, because that scares me. All right, character creation is getting another overhaul, and yes, the UI is getting tweaked again, and there's sure to be differences between the console and PC UI, but the final update at launch, we will now be able to change freckles and vitiligo on our skins, as well as gaining access to plenty of new tattoos, scars, lip makeup, piercings, horn colorings for the tieflings, and even heterochromia for dual colored eyes. And also, finally, Larian has added something really nice for us as well. We now have access to age sliders to help us just automatically change up our face to show our age. And we also have access to the strong body types, allowing for larger body sizes across both genders. So for those of you who took a look at Halison on day one and thought, dang, I want to be big and buff like Halison, Well, now you can. It's going to be a pretty simple switch to do when we're creating our characters. And just adding to the complexity of our character creation, Larian really is reiterating now more than ever that our identities as players, our class, our race, our everything will be passively acknowledged by the world around us. Who we are will naturally affect the game around us. And I suspect we'll be seeing that primarily through all of our interactions with NPCs across the whole game, especially since the people of Baldur's Gate will have heard about our exploits during our travels and will even have newspapers talking about us. And supposedly we can pay off people to have those newspapers altered if we need to. Player agency has been their goal since day one, and now player identity has been elevated to the same level. Something else too that lives in the same vein as character customization is that we can now change how we look while we're at camp. Whenever we wind down for the night, our characters will naturally switch to something they deem as more comfortable, and we of course can change it. We can find additional clothing for camp out in the world now, and we can also apply color dyes to change them as well. And there's even a new toggle button to keep wearing those clothes outside of camp as well, and it should be right above your inventory. Now, I know this video isn't in any particular order, but I would be ashamed if I didn't bring up multiclassing. This is something we've all been clamoring for since day one, and although we've had nothing to look at all of this time, I can safely say now that Larian is giving us multiclassing on day one for launch, and they're giving it to us in a way that the modding community won't even need to lay their finger on it. Their goal is to allow us to make any combination we want and to enjoy it to our heart's content. For the sake of the game versus traditional 5e Dungeons & Dragons, we won't have any prerequisites to start dumping levels into other classes. If you're a level 3 fighter with only 9 intelligence, and just as a point of reference, in D&D, you're only literate when you have an intelligence of, I think, 7 or 8. So having a 9 is pretty low. So with that in mind, if you're a fighter with level 9 intelligence and you suddenly want to just start throwing fireballs or other spells, you can do that. And that just lends more weight to the idea that our character identity is going to have real meaning in this game. So they're literally allowing us to make our dream characters without anything holding us back. Moreover, our class combinations are also going to be able to lead us to interesting roleplay and practical functions, depending on how we choose to play it. Now, for those of you who don't really understand what multiclassing is like, it means every time you level up as a player, you're not required to stick with your chosen class. You can dump 8 levels into Druid during your time in the game, but if you suddenly want some sort of utility from the Rogue or the Cleric classes, then your 9th level can be used to that effect, basically making you a level 8 Druid and a level 1 Rogue at the exact same time with a total level of 9. But if you don't already have generic knowledge of what the classes do, it is recommended that you look up what they can do online. And even if you can't find any info specific to Baldur's Gate 3, usually any general info from the D&D 5e manuals should get you close to what you're looking for. But at this point, because EA has been out for so long, I'm fairly certain you're not going to have to resort to the manuals. And speaking of classes and levels, Larian is officially implementing a respecing system within Act 1. Respec, spec, specialization, you can re-specialize your character. One of our allies from Early Access will be handling this, and it'll give players the ability to start over from level 1 and let us rebuild our characters all over again the way that we want. However, it does look like we might lose access to this privilege after we leave Act 1. So make sure you're happy with what you have before you finish Act 1 and you leave the starting area, because you may not be able to go back. And now for something that I thought Larian had completely forgotten about. They mentioned a mercenary system way early on in development, but we never really heard much beyond that. Well, it looks like it came around after all. We'll have access to 12 hirelings available for recruitment, 1 for each class. However, they're only meant to be temporary. It could mean they'll leave us after Act 1. It could mean we have to keep paying them, like the intelligent ogre that we meet in the deserted town. Who knows? But the big thing here that matters with these hirelings is that we can respec them. they'll still retain their identities. But if you want to have a party of 4 druids or 4 warlocks or any other combination, you can go for it. It'll let you do it. Now, this part I was not expecting. It was sweet to read about, but they squeezed in something that made me think, WTF, there's a theory here of some sort. So, in general, romance in this game is meant to be something tangible, with actual weight behind it. They expressly stated that they didn't just want a sex scene to be the final trophy for getting romantically involved with someone. They stressed that our companions very much will change who they are throughout the game, and that goes doubly so in regards to who we choose as our romantic partner. People are complex, and Larian wants that reflected in our companions. No 2 relationships are going to be similar. And as a teaser told to us by Larian in the community update, by the end of things, we could potentially be sacrificed in an evil god's sex ritual, or turned into a vampire, or even just plain married. I really feel like Larian has examined relationships in other games and has taken things to the next level. But the thing that really caught my attention was the fact that they also mentioned our pink-robed parasite dream person that we also created at the start of the game. Did you know they're actually called the Guardian? Now, maybe I missed something during the course of early access, but I never knew that. I never knew it had a true name. They said that they've used them to deepen the narrative, to go beyond the realm of physical desire, to encompass the full spectrum of complex emotions needed for both of us to trust each other. They actually snuck this into a community update, and it's such a tease because this pretty much confirms that this entity that we keep dreaming about isn't some maddening hallucination and is quite possibly confirmed to be a third party entirely, and not the parasite itself. The truth is in its name. This thing could quite possibly be the reason why the parasite as a whole hasn't turned us. But more than that, I was partial to this idea beforehand, but now I'm certain. This thing is definitely some sort of god or goddess keeping us safe. It is guarding us. But of course, we won't really know the truth until August 3rd. So if you're delving into the parasite powers, make sure you keep an eye out for what this thing might actually really be, because I feel like it's going to surprise everyone. Okay, we're getting closer to the end here, I promise. Crafting. We honestly didn't have much to go on during early access, and I'm certain it's going to be pretty cut and dry once full release happens. But one thing I didn't see coming is an alchemy system. It's going to be a new system that will allow us to throw together things like herbs, mushrooms, crystals, and monster parts into things like poisons, potions, and oils to be used during combat. This one seems pretty cut and dry as well, but I was surprised to see it show up regardless. And lastly, when it comes to in-game content, the final chosen of the Absolute has been revealed, a being known as Orin the Red, the Grand Master of Murder. She's been murdering for years and always gets away with it due to her shape-shifting abilities that lets her look like literally anyone. And Larian has nudged at the fact that she could be someone in our camp. She likes to lure people in before revealing her true nature in striking. Now, either this is some God-given ability from the Absolute, or she could very well just be a doppelganger with a very specific way of operating. Now, in regards to the launch itself, this game will be available in 13 different subtitle languages, which are English, French, German, Polish, Russian, Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Spanish, Latin America Spanish, Turkish, Portugal, Brazil, Italian, and Ukrainian. Split screen has also been officially addressed as 2-controller couch co-op. And of course, things like journal notes, minimap discoveries, and recipes will be shared between players, as well as their inventories. But you'll still have the option to lock your own inventory if you want. And same as before, when it comes to multiplayer in general, inspiration points will be shared between the players, and you'll also be able to vote on dialogue options when listening in on a conversation that another player is having. Certain scenes, like romantic ones, will naturally be made private for the player experiencing it, but this can be made public if they want. And for those of us who bought the big boxed collector's edition, that is still on track to arrive at the end of August, and it looks like that's not going to change. However, if you order the collector's edition for the PC, you will be getting a game code emailed to you in time for August 3rd, and right now it looks like we should be receiving that email on July 26th. And for those of you aiming for the PS5 game, your digital deluxe code will also be emailed to you ahead of time to take part in the console 72-hour early access period. However, it should be made very clear that only the PS5 is getting that head start. And for those of us looking to stream the game, there will be options available to us to disable cinematic nudity and genitals, because this way things can stay within community guidelines for all of the streaming websites. And just remembering that romance scene with Halcyon in the live stream, those settings are going to be sorely needed whenever we try to stream this game, because I realized those settings were probably turned on during the live stream, but it was a very steamy scene. So if you're curious, just go check it out for yourself. It had, me and the audience, we were just, ooh. Okay, anyways, so a reminder that the game will actually have some Twitch integration as well. So if you have a view party set up for your stream, your viewers can track your quest and also vote on dialogue options. In general, we've seen this time after time again during the actual Larian live streams where y'all have been voting on dialogue options during a live demo. Oh, and as it turns out, if the live stream is to be believed, if you rush this game, if you blitz the main story from start to finish, and you don't touch any of the side quest stuff, you don't, get involved with anything outside of the primary issue, this game is expected to take you roughly 80 hours to complete. That's how big the game is. That's how much time is going to be invested in just the main story. And that really does say a lot about Larian and how much they've just put into this. Just the main story by itself being 80 hours is just nuts. All right, and that is it. Pretty much this is the end of everything you need to know before the game launches on August 3rd. And for those of you who stuck with the whole video, good job. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who skimmed for pertinent information, that's good too. I'll be sure to put timestamps in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, but more importantly, I hope you are ready for the full release when it finally drops on August 3rd. If you're completely new to the game and have no idea what's coming, I do suggest taking a look at early access one afternoon before launch. This way you can get your feet wet a little bit and try to figure out which classes might pique your interest. Oh, and don't forget, all early access players are getting a free upgrade to the digital deluxe edition. So be sure to check that out and see all the goodies that come with that. And if you haven't seen the panel from hell yet, I highly suggest taking a peek at it at the very least, just to see how much the character creation has changed, because there are numerous additions in there that I haven't even mentioned in this video, and it would be so much better to see it for yourselves. So until next time, my fellow companions, stay safe out there.